Yo, what's going on YouTube? I'm Sue, but feel free to call me Pat if you are new here to the channel. This video contains my day one impressions of Honkai Star Rail after having played it for several hours. Let me begin by saying I came into Honkai Star Rail almost totally blind. I was aware of Honkai Impact as a mobile game through a lot of advertisements, through other things like podcasts or YouTube channels that I watch on the regular. I had also played Genshin Impact for about a year before dropping it due to, I would say, a disinterest in the core gameplay loop that constituted the end game. Other than that, though, everything about this game was a mystery to me going into it. I did not play the beta, I did not watch any trailers, I did not watch any streams or beta coverage whatsoever. What drew me into this game was actually the Epic 7 community. More specifically, how I had heard whispers from that community that this game might be the Epic 7 killer. And this is important to me because if you're familiar with my channel at all, I cover Epic 7 content, at least very regularly. I think Epic 7 is something truly special amongst other gacha games, which is why I have put so much time into making content for that game and its community. Epic 7, if you're unfamiliar, is a turn-based 4-player character RPG with gacha elements along with some absolutely gorgeous hand-drawn sprites as well as some cool animations. Honkai Star Rail, from what I was hearing, was a turn-based 4-character RPG with gacha elements along with some absolutely gorgeous 3D models and some really cool animations. Seems broad, I know, but considering how colossal MiHoYo's Genshin Impact has become and all of the hype that was seemingly around this game, I really just wanted to see what the hubbub was all about. My short time with Honkai Star Rail has been honestly pretty refreshing, but it's probably not for the reasons that you would think. Over the last several years, we've seen less and less of the traditional turn-based role-playing game. You have companies like Square Enix, who used to make turn-based games their bread and butter, shy away from this, and no better example of that is the upcoming Final Fantasy XVI. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I'm sure it's incredible, but you see what their designers are saying. They're saying things like, oh, turn-based combat doesn't fit the kind of game that we're trying to make, or turn-based games, we're trying to appeal to a broader audience. I'm, of course, paraphrasing, but that's the reasoning for why they're not going that route anymore. In the last several years, it feels like only Atlus with its Shin Megami Tensei games or Persona games have tried to progress this more traditional style of role-playing game, at least when we're talking about non-indie titles. Star Rail feels like such a surprise to me because it feels like that next logical step in how these games were supposed to be made. I grew up playing games like Persona or Xenosaga on the PlayStation 2. A lot of these are traditional turn-based RPGs with very varied and colorful casts of characters. These are games with turn-based combat where the emphasis was always on the order in which you sequenced your skills, as well as how you constructed your party composition. That style of game feels like it died somewhere around the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 era. No one, again, aside from indie games, are really making games in this same style anymore. And then Honkai Star Rail comes out of nowhere and acts again like we haven't missed a beat, transporting me back to those good old days that I used to enjoy with turn-based combat. You roam around spaces in this game much like you would a traditional JRPG from that PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 era, and it's complete with even invisible walls and everything, which is a huge shock to me. I didn't think I would see as many invisible walls in this game that I did compared to some of the other more modern games. It does feel like it is a throwback game in that sense. Enemy engagement in this game, by the way, is very akin to something like Persona. If you attack enemies with your weapon on the world map before you're spotted, you can get the drop on them and are usually rewarded with various different perks at the start of combat. Speaking of combat, it feels straight out of a Persona game as well. You want to construct a party comprised of many different elements so you can take advantage of all of the weaknesses of your opponents. Party composition in this game feels very satisfying. Characters have different elements, as well as different classes or roles, as well as 3 basic moves: a basic attack, a skill, and an ultimate skill. Even before getting any of the super rare 5-star characters from the game's gacha, I found myself constantly swapping between the units I owned to try out their different strengths and weaknesses based on the scenarios that the game was presenting me with. What if I need a win character for this fight? What if I'm too AoE focused and I come up against a strong single enemy or a boss? What am I going to do then? Should I really only be playing a team that is a physical plus fire team? That's only 2 elements. Is that too few? Is that enough? These are all the questions I was asking myself when I was playing Honkai Star Rail for the first 2 hours, and that's honestly something that I can say did not happen at all with their previous game, Genshin Impact. So in my eyes, that is a huge step up. The final piece of the combat puzzle, the thing that really sucked me into this game, was actually the aforementioned character ultimates. Normally, you look at the gauge on the left-hand side to see who is taking the next turn, the one after that, so on and so forth, akin to other turn-based games like Final Fantasy X, for example. Upon activating your character's ultimate, however, they can just bypass that entire line and take the very next turn with some super flashy or over-the-top skill. This feels very reminiscent of the boost mechanic from the old Xenosaga games, and is something that I've always loved, but almost was never replicated in any other games as far as I'm aware of. This boost or ultimate to cut the front of the line, that right there adds tremendous amounts of depth to this game in something that otherwise shouldn't have it when characters only have 2 or 3 actions on a given turn. Knowing when to cut the line with the ultimate and with which character to cut the line adds a ton of depth, I find, to this combat. Once I realized that I could chain ultimates together and abilities together, it almost felt like I was cheating the game's system, even though it's fully intentional. And that's when everything started to click, and I was just like, wow, what a great combat engine. This is what a great turn-based role-playing game feels like. It's simple, it's easy to understand with its systems, and it has incredible amounts of depth if you're willing to take the time to learn and explore all the ins and outs. These are the things that I look for in turn-based role-playing games. The concerns that I had heard when coming into this game about its potential lack of endgame, its potential lack of PvP, or how terrible its gacha rates are, none of that matters. Absolutely none of that matters. If this was a standalone, single-player role-playing game that I could purchase for $60 for all the content, I would do it in a heartbeat. It just feels like that kind of game. If anything, it makes me sad that this is actually a gacha game. I know microtransactions and live service models are the norm in our modern video game industry, but I think that model is actually a massive disservice to what this game is, at least from what I've played so far. Sure, Honkai Star Rail will probably make more money in the long run with this model, but I can't help but feel that those same things will end up detracting from the overall package. This feels like a reasonably polished old school JRPG, and I'd hate for people to not try it just because of honestly the very frightening paid elements that are in this game. Things like the 0.6% rate on 5-star characters and other things like that. This game is still very early in its life cycle, and honestly, I couldn't tell you how things are going to pan out for it in the long run. But if you're a fan of games like Persona or Xenosaga, then I encourage you to give Honkai Star Rail a try. Don't worry about the game's gacha systems. Don't feel pressured to spend any money on this game whatsoever. I've been doing just fine so far as a free-to-play player, and you know, again, I've been having a blast. And I really want people who watch this video who haven't given it a try, I want you to try Honkai Star Rail. I want you to just sit back, enjoy its beautiful presentation, and have fun with what is honestly a pretty good turn-based RPG, the same way that I used to enjoy them 10 to 15 years ago. And those are my initial thoughts on Honkai Star Rail. Have you guys tried this game out at all? Are you willing to give it a try after watching the video? Should I do more videos on Honkai Star Rail? Would love to know any and all of your thoughts. Please, as always, let me know down in the comments below. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll hopefully see you all sometime in another video. Bye-bye now.